I'm not fucking crazy for thinking that the world is a really fucked up place and something needs to change on a very fundamental level. And that's driven me to doing different, like, trying to change the world in various shapes and forms, but I've always, like, fallen back on punk as, like, my social scene or my friends who really keep me inspired. And the reason I wanted to do this is because I really wanted to use that energy to also be the means, not just be something that, like, supports me socially or like in my friendships and in my relationships, but like a network that I can work in to actually make some fundamental change in this world. I want to explore it with all of you guys. So that's an invitation for you to join me. The first statement is, punk offers education around issues of power that the mainstream doesn't offer. Okay, so does somebody on this side? Okay.
I feel like punk isn't the only outlet where radical education is coming from. I feel like it's also coming from all sorts of other, like, cultures or subcultures or whatever, even mainstream.
A middle-ish person?
I'm standing where I am because I feel like in some punk scenes that I've been in, I have felt like these issues are getting addressed, and in some they're like totally on the wayside and not being addressed.
Over there, yeah. Okay, and then there's got to be somebody over there.
Punk is usually really aggressive, and it has a lot to do with like your frustrations, and that has to do with society. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's like left wing or right wing, or it's not like on the political spectrum, just on like how you feel about society.
Issues of power are a lot more subtle thing than people tend to make them out to be, and sure, there are a lot of radical people within the punk scene that know, like, okay, yeah, Coca-Cola sucks, the government sucks. Then there's a lot of issues of power within the punk scene that don't get addressed, like, or if they do get addressed, it's very minimally, or it's just some things that you just can't even address. Just normal, like, mammalian instincts, just people, like, placing themselves above people without even realizing it, doing things within, like, just the basic social workings of utilizing power. That it's just, there are issues that are really hard to address because we don't really even have the words for it.
Nobody wants the power to be distributed on a basis of privilege or anything, and that in different communities it's more equally distributed than others, and I feel like that has more to do with how much those communities are exposed to like other cultures where like biases like patriarchy and stuff like that are like more dominant, and that's the reason that the power isn't as equally distributed.
Disagree, agree. Punk is inherently exclusive. I think everyone's a little unsure of their position on this, and I know I'm very unsure of my position on this, so let's keep in mind that no one here is like totally thinks they're right, and we're just trying to like discuss this, you know, like let's not jump down each other's throats, but let's hear what people have to say.
I think as much as punk tries to provoke this really noble intention of being equitable and laying down equality on racial and gender and ethnic fronts, there's still an overwhelming majority that is white. It is male, and it's obviously dominated. You can tell by the people in the crowd right now.
I think that when punk first started out, it was a lot more exclusive than it is today. And I think that, especially in the DIY community, people are really trying hard to be more inclusive. And we've all been socialized from when we were really young to have these different values that put us in different, roles of dominance. And I find more people in punk that are trying to rehabilitate themselves and try to get rid of those tendencies, and are trying to be inclusive and are trying to listen to other ideas.
I think any kind of culture that sets up sort of a list of what's right and what's wrong, whether it's just being diehard political about something, there's always the opposite of that, and that becomes kind of the wrong way to do it, and so those people get excluded. It's a lot easier for someone who would be like Buddhist or Western or Eastern religion to be accepted than someone who, say, goes around and admits to being a Christian at a punk rock show to find acceptance.
We walk down the street and look for someone who looks like us, and we smile and wave, and in that sense we're like really awesome, friendly people, but in another sense you see someone who doesn't look like you and you may not be as inclined to like say hello or like do a project with them. Yeah.
definitely somebody who disagrees, thinks it's not inherently exclusive.
I know Chicago has an up and coming like black punk community. You very rarely see someone rejected from it or just, you know, shunned.
And I think that to a really big extent, it's okay. Because, like, I don't want to fucking deal with, like, really overtly sexist people. And I don't want to, like, fucking deal with, like, men who I really feel like are trying to, like, compete with me and shit. And I don't want to, like, fucking deal with, like, people who are saying that I'm going to go to hell because I don't believe in Jesus Christ. So, like, it's self-exclusion, and, like, that's why I am a fucking punk. You know what I mean? As far as, like, kind of having this group of people that I really feel at home at, you know, I really like punk and I kind of need punk. Like that.
I have a direct response?
Wait.
But at the same time, like, I know that there are a whole lot of, like, I live in Little Rock, and there are a whole lot of punks in Little Rock who consider themselves punk, but still say, you're a fag, you're gay, and it makes me so angry because it's like, how can you consider yourself something that I consider myself and still call somebody that to their face?
I think that's a lot of what's wrong with today is people just want to exclude people and not work with them and try to help them.
And I noticed a lot of male-bodied, male-perceived people are speaking a whole lot. So to be really aware of that, and if you hold that identity, maybe try and step back so other people are encouraged to speak up. Because it's really hard as a female in this group to feel okay speaking when a lot of male folks are speaking.
For a female, it's a lot harder to like not be pretty. So a lot of times it's like mainstream setbacks holding them back from like coming into our community.
The most effective thing punks can do is redistribute wealth from relatively privileged folk to underprivileged or oppressed people. Okay, maybe somebody who totally disagrees. Anybody who totally disagrees? Cool.
Most punks come from pretty privileged sectors of society, and to say that we should be redistributing wealth and power, I don't think would be as good as to help empower people who could redistribute it for themselves.
We make our own morals based off of like such little things that are our truth and then our identity that we stand by so closely. It's hard to, you know, I think just knowledge is the most important thing right now.
I think redistributing wealth and power is just perpetuating the system.
Yeah.
I think, if anything, we've just got to work on everyone being on equal footing and getting away from the capitalism.
Punk can validate the feelings of its members while building links with oppressed communities that aren't punks.
Being a woman or being a person of color or being queer, like I see all these people who like, you know, that's a big part of their identity or something, and this is just an example. Like I think it goes like far beyond that, because if you can't link up with something that's really important to you, and if that doesn't fit into like being punk for whatever reason, like you tend to just like lose faith in punk.
It's really easy, like growing up in our society and like within the current power structures that we are, to like feel kind of trampled on or used or let down in some ways. And then it's like coming to something like this and seeing everyone come together, at least for me, like it definitely validates my feelings, like wow, I'm not the only one.
I think that punk has to maintain like a degree, like a balance between exclusivity and inclusivity to be a sustainable movement. And I think that like to answer this question, of course, like I think it's obvious that we should and could possibly like work towards like connecting with other oppressed sectors of society. But not only that, is that like, I mean, punk communities have done that. Like you've seen like steelworkers marching in the street with fucking black bandanas on, and you've seen like, punk kids working with the Zapatistas in Mexico. I mean, there's definitely lots of that going on. I don't think it's a question about that. I think it's a question about like making it happen more.
Disagree, agree. Punks are good at talking to ordinary people about radical change.
We're terrible. Yeah, we don't do it very well.
Am I serious about my politics? You know what I mean? Are people taking me serious because I'm a punk? I don't know. I think that's one of the biggest things we need to explore is ways to branch out to people who won't take us serious and find ways to maybe work with them.
We all grew up on this crazy, fucked up planet, and you know, we live in a community that I think really empowers the individual, and I think that's what we need to do, is empower other individuals who aren't necessarily punks.
If they're still like in a place where they don't have much power, like they're in high school or whatever, I think punks can be pretty good at communicating.
How punk is today, which was included in all of the criticisms and also the things people like about it, is for empowering us and for making us feel like validated and worthwhile about our feelings. We should like our political involvement from that should be doing the same thing for other people who aren't punks, like empowering other people to make their own communities and systems where they can do that. And then the third thing is that to do that, we need to reach out to other people who aren't punks.